it's been a really good year, and I'll say two things for that. One is a bear market is when we build. So there's been a lot of people, easy crypto amongst them, who have spent this year undistracted by crazy price action or too much, regulatory or industry palaver, just getting on and building stuff. And so I think next year will be a really exciting year as all of these things that have been built will start coming out to market, but also can't go past a nice little bit of price action to end the year with. And it's been a pretty flat year for a lot of it. But as Paul said at the outside, Bitcoin up 150%, a lot of that in the last couple of months, and really feeling like we're getting some traction and momentum to go into 2024 with. Hey everybody, we are back for the last CEO and the Lobster of the year with special guest Paul Quickenden to do a bit of a recap of the year that was 2023, what we've seen in the crypto markets, the highs, the lows, and what we're looking at coming into 24. So let's start with Bitcoin, right? This is always the big story. Paul, what's Bitcoin been up to this year? What are the highs and lows from the king of the markets?
Well, it's gone on a bit of a tear, right? If you compare where we were in December 22 to where we are now, price was about 17,000 US. Now we're at roughly 42. There you are. We've dated the presentation, but 140, 150% up. Volumes up. The regulatory uncertainty that was unfolding in the US has kind of gone away as we started easing into ETF talk, which is scheduled for early January. A whole bunch of good news is coming, and we've got the April halving event, which is still scheduled for around the 19th of April. Last time I looked,
on my birthday. That's what I'm gunning for.
That's right, Janine Day, as we will call it from now on. And
it has a different meaning now.
At a macro level, the global economy is looking better for risk assets. Inflation started to come back. More money is being printed in various parts of the world. So all of those are things that are supportive of a risk growth asset, which Bitcoin is. So it's had a good year. 2024, I think we're going to talk about that a little bit later, but we'll get to there.
Yeah, so Ethereum only up 72% this year. We're seeing this bit of a decoupling, interestingly enough. And there's a lot of speculated reasons why. The market cap growth that we've seen, where Bitcoin's moved from $27 billion per day to $65 billion a day, so nearly more than a twofold increase. Haven't quite seen that where Bitcoin's ETH's just at a twofold increase. It's interesting speculation that there's been a lot of attention and focus towards the developments, the technological developments that we've seen on Bitcoin, right? You're talking about the ordinals there and that people being able to put JPEGs into Bitcoin and a lot of really, really interesting stuff. You've seen Lightning really, really come into its own. On the other side of it, Ethereum's had a big year. It's had some really, really interesting stuff, which we will talk about in a little bit. But they haven't seemed to have captured the public consciousness as much. It hasn't been as exciting as all the stuff happening on Bitcoin recently. And I see that is reflected in the price, that the focus is on Bitcoin, and where the focus is, the price action is, and that's led to Bitcoin's price rising. Again, 72% returns in a year ain't bad, but when we're comparing it to 150%, obviously, take it with a grain of salt. Throwing over to you though, Janine, SBF.
Yeah, that was the other big news for this year. And, obviously the fall of FTX, which was 2022, and almost a year from that to the date, almost, SBF was convicted. So we have yet to find out what the sentencing actually will be. Next year sometime that we find out what the actual sentence is, but he has been convicted of the crimes. Good to see that turnaround. There's actually a relatively fast turnaround when it comes to this type of large-scale crime. And it's good for the industry. I think it feels that we've kind of closed that chapter a bit. We've moved forward. There's been a lot of more of that institutional interest and regulatory attention that helps the industry feel like we're maturing, we're moving past those bad actors, and things are improving. Talking about bad actors, maybe I shouldn't preface with that, but talking about regulatory action, the other big news for this year outside of FTX was Binance and what's been happening on that. So we had very large fines from the SEC to Binance, and Binance has had problems in a number of markets because of its, the black marks on its name. I think overall, though, the big takeout for us from that was that the markets didn't move. The markets weren't spooked or frightened by what happened with Binance, and it was a good sign that, again, the industry is maturing, moving forwards, and that we're going to have a better, stronger, more robust and more regulated industry coming into 2024, which is likely to be good for everyone. And there's a lot of chat about those regulatory moves sort of paving the way for ETFs. So Paul, I think I've lost track of how many times you've talked about ETFs this year, but you want to give it one last shot?
Sure. This ETF's different, right? So this ETF is where actual Bitcoin are being bought and taken out of the market and put into cold storage in a custodian. So the other ETFs,
it's micro strategy, effectively.
Yeah, they've got their own wallet, those guys, but there are futures ETFs and already around in a couple of jurisdictions. But this one means actual supply chain in the real market where you and I buy our Bitcoin. So that's good news. At last count, something like 12 people have applied for a Bitcoin spot ETF. The SEC has done its best to delay that, but it has to work to a certain time frame. And the people who watch this the space closer than I do are saying around the 12th of January, we will get some sort of hard and fast stance from the SEC on that. And they look like they want to approve multiple people at once. And given that the biggest asset managers in the world, so we're talking about BlackRock with, I don't know, $5 trillion, or I've just made that number up, but it's a huge number of asset management, Fidelity. Oh, hey, I get to write the comms. I make it up. But those guys are the biggest asset managers on the planet, and they're all planning to add Bitcoin into their offering to their high net worths and the institutional clients. That means pension funds. That means high net worth family offices can suddenly buy Bitcoin in a way that is familiar to them. They've already got ETFs in their portfolios. This would just be another one. So the view is that this will suddenly mean a lot more money, liquidity is the term, coming into the market. A lot of buying action, and given we're heading into a halving cycle, so less supply on a daily basis. Classic supply and demand dynamics go, and Bitcoin will continue its ride. It's 2023 ride, but do it 2024 stylies.
Yeah, so that was a little bit of an overcap of the main things that have happened this year. We thought we might jump into a few questions quickly. So Paul, Janine, whichever one wants to take this, do you think this has been a good or a bad year for crypto?
I reckon it's been a really good year, and I'll say two things for that. One is, and you'll hear this from us a lot, the bear market is when we build. So there's been a lot of people, easy crypto amongst them, who have spent this year undistracted by crazy price action or too much, regulatory or industry palaver, just getting on and building stuff. And so I think next year will be a really exciting year as all of these things that have been built will start coming out to market, but also can't go past a nice little bit of price action to end the year with. And it's been a pretty flat year for a lot of it. But as Paul said at the outset, Bitcoin up 150%, a lot of that in the last couple of months, and really feeling like we're getting some traction and momentum to go into 2024 with. So I'll say good year for crypto, setting up for a great year next year.
Paul, thoughts? Good, bad, what do you think?
I'm buying that. I agree. I think it's been a good year. I think some of the clean outs that our crypto cycle, our crypto winter brings net good. It means that the companies that survive are hardened and ready for what comes next. They're good operators. The regulators are dealing with them in good ways. So I think that all of that is a good thing, a net good thing. For the last 3-4 months, a lot of that in our newsletters has been saying institutional money's coming in. 12 straight weeks of net inflows, new products being released, banks are launching stable coins. It's a little hard to argue now that crypto is just this niche industry on the side, that it's just for, I don't know, criminals or whatever. You've got the largest financial institutions in the world now participating in our sector. And so, and they're doing it for good reason. One, the technology brings some efficiency, and two, as Janine's alluded to, they can't ignore the price action. If you've got enough demand from your customers to say, I want a piece of that, then they're going to solve for it. And that's kind of what's going on in that space.
Yeah, love it. And institutional adoption, good thing, Paul. What does it mean for like the everyday people, you and I? I mean, obviously demand side impacts, but is there more than that?
Great question. It depends on your philosophical stance. My view is that we as everyday people have access to a market that we can participate on equal footing with these guys. So that's a fantastic place to be. It will obviously have price impacts. They will do what they do. But I also think that it signals a growing up and a maturation of the market, and trust, and all of those things that everybody who isn't a crypto participant wants to see in a market will start to come. the regulators are putting in the frameworks to deal with that. So I think on a net basis, it will make it a friendlier place for everyday investors to come, and I think that's a good thing to do.
Awesome. One last question just to wrap us up for while I've got Janine and Paul here. We've heard a lot of bad news about crypto this year. There's also been some good news. From the general public's perspective, from a layperson just on the street, do you think the bad news this year about Binance, about SBF, so, wow, that took me a while, has outweighed the good news that we've heard about the institutional growth, about what's happening with real world, like use cases and real world assets?
I think the bad news has definitely overshadowed the good. Like, talk to anyone and they don't really know about institutional adoption. They definitely don't know about real world use cases and what's being built. They will have heard about price action, SBF and FTX, Binance, and probably scams. Scams and frauds have had a really big year as well across the board, not just in crypto. So I do think that the bad news has overshadowed the good, but the silver lining of that for us, or those of us who are actually, you know, in the industry, listening to these podcasts, reading, you know, up on this, is that good news lag will take a little while to get out to the wider population. And when it does, that will probably drive more interest and drive more sort of uptake of crypto. So yeah, I'd say there's still opportunity from that bad news perhaps overshadowing, but that won't continue forever.
Awesome.
Yeah, I tend to agree.
Awesome.
Yeah.
So looking forward to 2024. Hopefully we have a lot more good news to talk about. Hopefully the good news beats out the bad in 2024. But till then, I hope everyone has a lovely, lovely little break and hopes they spend some time with their friends, their families. Hopefully crypto continues its awesome run. And yeah, we'll see you in 2024.
Till then.
Ka kite.